tonight we're going to feature some of the Cerro Gordo Clean Energy District champions talking about their early success. They're a fresh new energy district. They put together a nice presentation and just kind of summarizing some of their happenings in the past year, 18 months really. I'm wondering, I should have checked registrations. Let me do that real quick. And then, oh, it is 6:02. I think I will probably hand it over to you, Gina. Do we want to just everybody real quick sort of introduce themselves as just your name and where you're coming in from tonight? That would be great, and that way we know who's in the room. It's a little bit of a crowd, so maybe I'll just call on you. So hey, Mark, would you just kind of introduce yourself to the crowd again?
Yeah, this is Mark Patton. I'm with the Muscatine County Energy District.
Great, welcome, Mark. And Kent?
Yes, this is Kent Scheid with Tama County Clean Energy District.
All right. Thanks, Kent, for joining us. And then Paul.
Paul Lovell. I'm from the sunny, beautiful Howard County Energy District.
It's not April Fool's Day anymore, is it, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. And hi, welcome, Cheryl. We're just kind of introducing ourselves and saying which energy district we're calling in from.
Cheryl Miller, Johnson Clean Energy District, Iowa City.
All right, great. Thanks for coming. And then we've got Pamela. Pamela, if you're there, you're on mute. If you're, oh, thanks. Hi.
Hi.
What? Oh, you went back on mute. Sorry, Pamela.
I'm from the Cerro Gordo County Clean Energy District.
Okay, good. I don't know that I've ever met you directly. So, okay, great. Well, thanks for joining. And I think we've got Don and Paul and Gina to kind of finish this out. Don?
That's me.
And Bob.
Yeah. I'm Bob Cole from the Cerro Gordo County Clean Energy District.
Great. Oh, and Don, I think you might have gone on mute again there. Or we? Oh, not sure what's going on there. Did anybody else have trouble hearing Don's voice? Okay. Well, Don is the chair of the Cerro Gordo Energy District. So looks like the Cerro Gordo Energy District is well represented here. I think Bob is going to kind of go through these slides. And I just want to thank you guys very much for taking the time to put together this presentation tonight and just sort of keep us, you know, Energy District folks. I've got this recording tonight. So there were a few people that wanted to be here, but had other things going on, but we know that they're not having to be. If this would have been, I was so glad to know that the Hawkeyes were playing last night, because that would have been a tough sell last night. So we are all proud Iowans today, that's for sure. My goodness, what a game. Okay, so I just again want to. Oh, here comes Kurt. He's also from Cerro Gordo. And Sue is traveling back from DC together. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks, Mark, for letting us know that. So there was a little interest from all the other energy districts too. It just some competition there, but we'll share out this recording. And again, thank you very much, Gina and Bob and Don and Pam and Kurt for doing what you're doing up there in Cerro Gordo. And we're real glad to hear your story here tonight. So I will just say one last thing is that this is meant to be very casual. You know, I think maybe we'll just have you guys go through the slides and then we'll kind of hold the questions till later. unless you really have something burning and it seems like you really want to talk at that point. But maybe I'll leave it up to you guys too, as how you want to run it that way.
Okay,
But
great.
please don't feel like there's any formality here. So, all right.
Sure. And I already see a question here from Mark. What's the county seat of Cerro Gordo? I believe that would be Mason City. Is that right? Yep. Our courthouse is in Mason City, so.
He wants to know the name in Spanish. He wants to make fun of us.
Oh, I missed that. Okay. Cerro
Gordo
Gordo
Fat
means
Hill.
Fat Hill, I believe. So
It
if
means
anyone else would
Flat
like
Hill?
to, I think it means Fat Hill. That's what I've always been
Oh,
told.
Fat
In
Hill.
fact,
Yep.
yes,
Yeah, Cerro. Yes.
yes.
Got it. Go, Cerro Gordo. Good. Who knew?
All right. So I will get us started here with our presentation. Let's see. Can you help me? Right here. Okay, right here.
Gina has tech support in the room with her.
Yes. Right here. Okay. And then the presentation down here. Okay, can everyone see the
Yeah.
first slide? Okay,
Looks great. Thank you, Gina. And
you
great.
bet.
And
Well,
Dan.
here we go. All right. So today we put together a little bit of just an informal presentation in kind of 4 parts. We'll cover an introduction to who we are, talk about our energy tour. We'll talk about the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition efforts, and then kind of keep it open for conversation. So it's kind of a little map of where we're going. All right, so Cerro Gordo Clean Energy District is who we are. And the little shout out here, right here in River City. For those of you who may not know, so one of our local heroes, I would say, is Meredith Willson. And he wrote the Music Man musical. And so that's a shout out. That's about a fictional town modeled after Mason City called River City. So, right. Okay, so just a little bit about our timeline. We were founded just a little over a year ago. We became incorporated February 3rd of 2023. We went ahead with some first early events. In April of last year, we had a table at the Clear Lake Green Expo. And then we also had some presentations to local service groups such as Rotary in May. We joined CEDI officially May 11th. And then we had a presence and we marched in the Band Festival Parade here in Mason City, and also the 4th of July float in Clear Lake. So, all right, so one of the special challenges that we have here in Cerro Gordo County is that in May of last year, the Cerro Gordo County Board of Supervisors approved an 18-month moratorium on utility-scale green energy projects in the rural parts of the county. And so we're still in that moratorium. We expect that it may be lifted in maybe August, but it may not be. And so our group, and we're a small group, I should mention a small group, we have 8 people on our board, and we have a couple other people who join us occasionally. So this Planning and Zoning Commission has held 5 public input meetings. We attended all 5 of those, and we have listened to the concerns, kept track, and did our best to respond with government-based factual information, myths that are out there about solar and wind and that kind of thing. And we have, in an ongoing way, presented that information to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so, it is our hope that they, while they develop these ordinances, that we can provide, some factual based information for them to proceed. And we've shared some other study resources, and so that's a challenge here in our county. Okay, so if we get into the tour, we held a local leader clean energy tour. We invited 114 people, just a few stats here. 114 people were invited. We had 3 locations, and we received lots of positive feedback. Okay, so tour overview, just the who, what, when, where. So we decided our first tour would be directed toward local nonprofit leaders and members in our communities. That includes Mason City, Clear Lake, Rockwell, Rockford, some other smaller towns around. What, this was a visit to locations to see green energy up close. When we held this in October 4th of last year. Whoops. And where we visited 3 locations in Mason City, all nonprofits. So N.I.A.C.C is the North Iowa Area Community College, also the Good Shepherd Kentucky Ridge Care Center, and the Mason City Public Library. The reason for the tour, the why, was to encourage renewable projects in our county, to raise awareness of the IRA incentives, and to provide examples of successful projects. So preparing for the tour, this is our big, one of our big first events. It began in June. We set up a subcommittee, which with 8 people on our board was kind of everybody, if I recall. And I would also like to just again publicly thank Jolene for her great coaching. We had several calls during this time, and that she also shared a lot of the tools and other models, templates and things that we could really get going and not be quite so intimidated to put this together just on our own without guidance. So all of those tools really helped us out. So that was in June that we started meeting weekly for the subcommittee. And then as a committee, we brainstormed a list of attendees and locations. Let's see here. And also we chose HubSpot, which is a product. It's a software product. We chose that as our tool to manage invitations and lists. And so we were able to, as we make these contacts in our community, kind of put a tag on them. Maybe they're a nonprofit. Maybe they'd be a great candidate for this first tour. So we asked the locations if they were interested. I think we started with 5 locations and then narrowed it down to 3 that would be the best ones in this moment. That's my 1.5-year-old golden retriever, and she just picked up a toy. Sorry about that. And then we provided, questions to presenters. I'm sure a lot of you who have gone through these tours kind of followed the same steps, but then we created some signs, maps, handouts, and then just to manage the email invitations and RSVPs. So this slide, we all know a picture is worth 1,000 words, and how just experiencing it is worth so much more. And so we put this in motion. And this slide is at one of our sites. It's at the Good Shepherd site. Okay, so tour data is here. Our attendees, our Cerro Gordo Clean Energy team wore branded t-shirts that you can see up here. Traffic flow, the team helped get attendees to correct locations. We had signs printed to help point to the events. We also introduced presenters at each location and facilitated a Q&A session at each of those locations. We opted to have everyone drive themselves just so that we could avoid any liability and insurance concerns. And then also we made scripts for everyone, just the same script to hand out to all of our team members. So everyone knew the timings and, to include introductions and even the questions and stuff, just so we were prepared. So, and then if we look at post-tour, so step 1, we had a meeting to talk and recap the event as a group. We sent out paper handwritten thank you notes and also emails that day. We sent a follow-up feedback survey, and we did find we had printed them so people could do them on the day, but we found that I think everyone wanted to do electronically, and we had a pretty good response. So we sent that follow-up feedback survey electronically. We sent out a project summary to the attendees, and then we wrote our final report. All right, so then we'll just kind of jump into each site. So we started out at N.I.A.C.C. Oh, let's see here. Whoops. All right, and again, NIAC stands for the North Iowa Area Community College. Our presenters there were the president of the college, Steve Schultz, and also the campus project lead, Tony Pappas, who happened to be retired, but he came in and we were so pleased he shared his knowledge on this project with us. So here are just a few pictures. We didn't grab a lot of pictures because we were also kind of hands-on and busy. This is just the parking lot. We held this in an educational room at the college. And then again, we heard from 2 speakers. And then I just put up some information here. Let's see. So N.I.A.C.C has one of the largest solar arrays at a community college in the country. Construction began in 2020. The collaboration was between the college and a private investor utilizing solar tax credits. And then the college will purchase the solar arrays from the investor in 5 years. The saving estimates at the beginning of the project were approximately $392,200 a year, or 58% of the campus's current consumption. And so then I also just included a quote at the beginning of the project here from the NIAC president, talking about how impactful having the 4 large arrays, ground arrays, how visible they are, and that, you know, just to further communicate that NIAC is committed to sustainability and doing their part to protect the environment. And another quote here from from Tony. And I'll just read this one. NIAC has a long history of being committed to purchasing and using energy in the most efficient, cost-effective, and environmentally responsible manner possible. This solar project is one more example of our commitment to energy conservation and environmental stewardship. Reducing our utility costs by utilizing solar energy will provide direct financial support to all other college operations and will complement the academic programs and community events for many years to come. And the project will reduce energy costs by approximately $10.7 million over the next 25 years. So I think we're really lucky here in our county to have such a nice example of a solar project at the community college. So we're lucky they're advocates for that. Okay, moving on to our second site, Good Shepherd, Kentucky Ridge. Our presenter was the facilities director, Alex Van Hoosier. And here you can see our tour group is outside looking at the sunflower panels. And you'll see back here, one was kind of out of commission, so they had to flatten it. And so it was really great to learn about the mechanics of some of that, which we'll get into here. And then there's some kind of, during the tour pictures, we were able to see the statistics of all of the care facility, the people at the care facility, the residents, all their rooms, and all of the stats for every single room. And this was just the presentation room. And this is again, outside, we were probably talking. They also have geothermal at the site. And so this is one of the 2 geothermal sites that are, of course, buried, but we're discussing that outside there. Okay, so just a few other interesting points from Kentucky Ridge. Their project was installed in 2021. It provides an estimated 20 to 30% power of their power consumed. Ideal Energy of Iowa Falls did the installation and handles the primary maintenance and repairs. Rotate to Follow the Sun, or they called sunflowers, that dual axis solar tracking. It follows the sun and goes up and down. This location in Mason City happens to be super windy. And so they have found the go flat tabletop mode when the wind is greater than 18 miles per hour. Originally, they set that at 25 miles per hour. It's programmed to, I think, go flat. So that's been one of the challenges for them with those tabletops. And also some supply chain challenges for parts 8 months out and staffing issues. So they wouldn't necessarily recommend this route for everyone. So, and part of that is because of their very windy location. We also learned about their geothermal system. They installed that in 2002 and again in 2010. The first installer went out of business, and then Mechanical Air and other contractors helped on that project. The wells are hidden under 2 sections of grass outside the back of the facility. We saw the well sites and interior pump rooms with computers showing heating and cooling stats for each of the facility's rooms. And there was a picture of that on the previous slide. And the facilities team manages the pumps themselves. So our last tour site was our Mason City Public Library. And our presenter for that was the library director, Mary Markwalter. And this image here is taken of these solar panels on the roof. So I think this was particularly helpful because a lot of people in Mason City just don't know about this because you really can't see them from the road. So, and including me, I didn't know about this when I moved back to Mason City a couple of years ago. So anyway, they're there. And here's a couple pictures from that day. This is me here in the green t-shirt. And then here's Mary. You know, she really walked us through a lot of other things that they've done. And I'll cover that on the next slide here. Or the next one. So rooftop solar. This was installed in 2016. There were 17 solar installation companies interviewed, which I thought was, I didn't know that you could go through that many interviews, but she went through that many, and many of those visited 2 or 3 times. So this in figuring out who she was going to use as an installer. The approvals, she tried 3 times with the Mason City Council. 10-year terms were desired, but a 13-year term was approved. There was a PPA involved called Sun Power Solutions in Cedar Rapids. There are 114 individual units. The library is now about 30% solar powered. In terms of savings, there was an 18-month payback, pay flat fee for kilowatt hours for 15 years. The Mason City Public Library will own it after 15 years. Maintenance is covered for 25 years. They no longer pay Alliant on-demand charges, and this saved the Mason City Public Library hundreds of dollars per month. Energy expenses went from $78,000 to $43,000 annually. They shot for about $38,000, but Alliant raised the prices during that time. And also, that amount of savings, that is the same as an FTE or a position there at the library. So that's a very easy thing for people to understand, that we were able to hire someone based on the saving, you know, another position here at the library based on those savings. And then also some energy conservation. They replaced windows. The Mason City Public Library is a very old building. And so they've done some work, like I said, to replace the windows so that they can open and close them for fresh air. I noticed that even in our presentation room, there are big shades that were down on a sunny afternoon. They turn the lights off if possible, and a lot of things are on motion sensors. Install automatic lights. And then just also that they had spent $15,000 on an energy audit. So just for people to understand the price of things. And so, okay. And then another component at the library is that the library has installed an electric vehicle charging station. And so just a couple notes on that. The vendor was ChargePoint. 70% cost of the installation was rebated back to the library's foundation that came from Alliance. They charged 23 cents, or back in October, that was the amount. It's a level 2 charging station versus a level 3, which I think can be more expensive and can be harder on cars. So kind of in closing this portion, we have, we'll just talk about some of the tour outcomes. We had some really great feedback. People really liked the green shirts. And, you know, there was enthusiasm for people sharing their stories and the successes as well as the struggles. You know, at every site, we heard about the challenges and how long things can take, and, you know, convincing people that this is a good idea. And so I think it was I think that was really helpful. People liked the formats. It was a nice size. We had about, I think 12 or 13 people in attendance. And so, and everyone really participated and everyone asked questions. Just a compliment that we provided guides and people like the maps. So let's see. Okay, and so this is a question that came from the final reporting that we submitted to Jolene and her group. So what did we dream or hope might happen because we hosted this tour or event? So we demonstrate that Cerro Gordo County has successful renewable energy projects and connect project owners with local non-project leaders considering these projects. So that was kind of our dream or hope. Based on the feedback, what was learned? So I would say challenges of working with boards, the electric companies, importance of gathering many quotes and finding the vendors. We learned kind of the challenges of those sunflower type of solar panels and the motors. So just some specific points. Also, there were really excellent conversations, questions and answers, detailed discussion by the N.I.A.C.C leader on successfully working with Alliant Energy. And his hope was to make it easier for future solar projects in our region. And he also offered to connect those interested in pursuing renewable energy projects with funds, which is amazing. So hopefully some of those conversations have been had for people who are really interested in going down that path. How well did we meet our goals? I think we all felt we met them well. It was a beautiful day in early October. There were lots of smart audience questions and lots of enthusiasm in all aspects. We were thrilled with the outcome of this event, and we hope to continue with residential and business versions in the future. So now, Bob, if you'd like to proceed with our Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition report on that.
I would be happy to. Thank you.
Okay.
And we can move ahead. We had sort of pre-planning activity. One of the things we did is went around and talked to probably 60 or more people or organizations about what they see as the needs for people on low-income housing for the energy and what are some of the issues. The one thing that came out from a number of them was that a person would get their low-income housing subsidy, move into a house, they're doing real good till they get their first energy bill, and they can't pay it. So they bring in 2, 3, 4 other people. Up to one house had 7 people living in it so they could cover their energy cost. And so that was a real issue that many of them saw. The nice thing about that is we had a lot of people give a lot of examples of things going on in the county. The mistake we made is we didn't record them or write them down and give specific quotes to specific people to say, okay, this is what so-and-so said, its issues and all that. So, but as we look at some of the organizations, the city, county planners, also we have a regional planning organization that meets quarterly, and we got all those planners sort of excited about what we were doing. The county public health officials are really knowledgeable of what's going on in the houses. They have environmental specialists, housing specialists. There's 4 people in our county thing that their full responsibilities are working with low-income housing in one way or another, just specifically. And they also, through them, have a countywide housing coalition, which I also attended one of their meetings, and we talked about what we were doing. And that's a number of organizations working in the low-income housing arena. The city building inspector was the one who was talking about the people moving in and the up to 7 people in a house. Community action. They have weatherization in a number of counties. Cerro Gordo does not have a weatherization of its own. They outsource it to other community action groups, but they work in those. Habitat for Humanity, which does an excellent job on their energy conservation and try to make their homes as energy tight as they can. And I believe one of our CEDI meetings, they were talking about one of the counties trying to get solar on their Habitat for Humanity units coming up in the future. There's a renters association, which are or landlords, I guess it was called. And this was probably the one problem we had. I attended their meeting a couple days after one of their prominent members had a house totally trashed. They were talking about the thousands and thousands, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 worth of damage in this house for the whole meeting. And then we had our public meeting the next day. That'll come up again later there, but it was a good group to talk with. We talked about some of the issues that are faced by their tenants and what they do to help them and things like that. As I said, the Housing Coalition, city and regional housing agencies, the homeless shelters, they were very interested in talking about how some of their clients who come in there, that the energy costs were causing them problems, what caused them to become homeless and things like that. Also the crisis intervention, disabilities and mental health organizations all deal with people who are in low income housing. And they were giving me all types of stories of people moving in and things like that. And I was really excited about what we would do when we get to the public meeting. So then we had the public meeting. We want to move, yeah. And at the meeting, the groups that were represented there, out of all those that I visited with, they were all invited to come. These were the people who actually showed up: the Landlords Association, Public Health, their housing specialist, the Iowa State University County Extension Director showed up and had some things to talk to. They do a lot of things through their home economics programs and farm or their income programs that they work with people. The homeless shelter director, Habitat for Humanity, and then some of our committee members. So that's the group that actually attended the meeting. At the meeting, I called on one of the people who was telling me about all the difficulties his clients dealt with. I thought I'll start with him and he'll get the ball rolling. Well, he's also a landlord. And he started out talking about this house that was destroyed and all the problems and causing with that. And then the next person to speak were the landlord representatives from the landlord associations. By the time they got done, nobody else felt comfortable talking about anything. It just blew up the whole meeting. They did come out, they talked about, and everybody is in agreement with this, the landlords and everyone else, that there was a lack of incentives for landlords to reduce the energy costs of their homes. They're just, Alliant no longer gives rebates. There's no rebates. There's basically nothing for the landlords to really encourage it. So, and they didn't see that they're going to get that much more return if they do weatherization or anything else to try and improve, replace the windows and all that type of stuff. They were talking about all the regulations that landlords pose. I'm saying these guys sort of hijacked the meeting. I'm not sure it was intentional, but that's what happened. They talked about all the regulations, like when you put in new carpeting, it has to be replaced in 7 years. The life expectancy is 7 years in an apartment and things like that. And so they were very upset about that and keep going back that there's really no rebates available for energy rebates for helping in rental properties and for encouraging to do things like that. So that's kind of the direction the meeting went. They did summarize some things. Number one was that, again, going back to their issue, there's no teeth or recourse for damage caused by renters. If they destroy your house, there's nothing you can basically do to come back on them or get anything. And then they said there were no incentives currently available financial for making the improvements, that it'd be beneficial to have more rigorous requirements in issuing the landlord's license. So they would set up requirements of what the house should be, then they could maybe get the energy, this was them talking that you don't just get anybody throwing up a shack and renting it out, but they thought there needed to be inspections and just rigorous requirements for issuing a landlord license. They also felt that they should require background checks on all the tenants. Not sure how well that will go over with the social service agencies and so on. And then the last thing that they talked about was the more housing inspectors were needed to actually go through and inspect the houses and see what can be done and things like that. So they also, we talked about other additional suggestions that there might be there. They really felt that there were incentives like rebates and things for landlords. They even said, and homeowners for energy, to make energy efficiency improvements in their homes, that'd be most helpful. And they were really, that was what they were trying to push for. They felt that there needed to be a funding program for low-income families to cover their utility bills. They said electric, but they were talking about utility bills. And I believe Minnesota legislature just passed something in the last few weeks I saw on TV where they're setting up a statewide utility rebate thing for renters and so on when they're with high utility costs. If the state would try to cover some of those for them and do something. So that's a possibility. And they, again, said, we need weatherization programs for low-income housing statewide. And if we can also use those weatherization programs for rental units, that'd be great. So that was sort of where they were on that. Our takeaways from the group of us that met with them, and this was my fault, you need to be careful how you ask the question to stimulate discussion. I felt real comfortable calling us. This guy said, well, what do you see as the issues for people in low-income housing? And then it started into the destruction of the homes and all that. You have to be specific of what are the issues facing the tenants as regards to their cost for energy once they get in the home or something like that. You need to be very specific. And then you can always go back on task. Well, since I didn't ask the question quite properly, we were never able to go back and do that because it just kept circling around. They also feel, and I agree with this, that there needs to be some sort of a energy efficiency rebate program. What Reliant and the other energy companies were doing there for a while, giving rebates for windows, for the various energy features in homes. Somehow we need to get that institutionalized, whether it's from the state government or some other way to get it, to give the incentive for landlords to make the improvements in their homes. Because right now they just feel there are no incentives. And the other thing is, if we do this again and we go around and talk with all these people, I would want to make sure I recorded or in some way logged all the valuable input I had on one-to-one. And people feel very comfortable in talking one-to-one about the actual issues that people are having. They were giving me names of people and what the situations were and everything else. And it was just great. That's why I was so excited about this. I thought this is really going to evolve. And then it dissolved right in front of me and we couldn't get it back on there. But somehow we need to capture that valuable one-on-one stuff before the community meeting. That would be one of my suggestions. So I saw there was a comment there, but I missed the reading of it when it was up there.
Yeah, I can get those back to you here, read back. So, and I think it's really, everybody just, maybe we'll just open it up here for questions, but Mark's question, just on the rent control topic that you had, or line that you had in there, Bob, was, and there's no rent control, is very tight and increasingly expensive market. Renters need to be screened before they sign a lease. Rental housing is almost impossible to deal with regarding energy conservation. If you put in insulation, et cetera, there's not guaranteed that the renter will see the savings and the rent will still go up. Which is, yeah, I mean, I think we all sort of understand that regardless of the type or the density of our energy districts. What I would say is that we're going to hear from Lynn County, and Lynn County does have, their energy district is working on a program that is trying to incentivize multi-dwelling building owners to make energy efficient, housing, and make it so that renters win when they're living in an efficient property. There are a lot of, it's not like there's, what I think you hear is landlords see it as all bad, it's all against them, there's no advantage, and they're renting out their property to people who don't take care of property, which is, it's hard to put a blanket out there on all of those things.
Yeah.
But maybe
by the same token, the landlords are concerned about the renters and the cost of their energy. Some of them are. This particular one that they talked about, him destroying his house, he's been known to loan people money so they can get by if they run short on the end of the month and things like that. So they do care about them. Many of them do. Maybe not all of them, but many of them do care. We call them slumlords because that's all the people can afford, and they play an important role in the community. They're scratching their heads saying, what can we do? How can we do this and still financially come out ahead?
Yeah.
Or break even. And so it's not that they're inherently bad, they're struggling with it, and they were looking for suggestions also.
Yeah, thanks, Bob, for that. I appreciate what you're saying.
But
One thing that's
very tough. Yeah,
oh,
I'll be quiet.
oh, that's okay. I was only going to say that okay, so maybe some of you are aware of the fact that all ratepayers of investor-owned utilities, meaning if you're a Mid-American customer or an Alliant Energy customer, there is a surcharge on every ratepayer's bill that goes into the Energy Efficiency Fund. So there's a state energy efficiency fund, and that state energy efficiency fund used to collect, I think it was like 6% of the kilowatts consumed on each bill or for each meter. And that was then reinvested into energy efficiency for their ratepayers, their customers, and they had to develop that programming, and it is regulated by the Iowa Utilities Board. It was mandated by the legislature. The Iowa Utilities Board was regulating how that energy efficiency fund was spent down or actually executed. That fund, the state of Iowa used to lead the country, or was it near the top as far as energy efficiency programming, and Iowa's energy plan, which was written when Kim Reynolds was lieutenant governor, includes all kinds of energy efficiency. We know that for every dollar spent on energy efficiency returns savings back to the ratepayers. And so, but the problem is the programming that comes out of that is designed by the investor-owned utility, and it's really not very well mandated. But worse than that, they were not satisfied with having to take a lot of the this energy efficiency fund and come up with energy efficiency programming. So in 2018, they lobbied the state legislature to gut that program, and so it still exists. Every investor-owned utility ratepayer does contribute a portion of their bill into this energy efficiency fund. It's just at very, very low numbers. But they still, in theory, have energy efficiency programming. It's just, but without that nice rate, there isn't a lot of market for it. But they also offer rebates. So they have a rebate schedule every year. If you put in electric heat pumps, or you put in electric heating like geothermal, they will give you a rebate or a charger, or buy an electric car. that kind of thing. So Energy Star appliances. So there are still rebates there. But we know that if you're selling kilowatts, all you want to do is sell as many as you can for as long as you can, for as much as you can. So they're not motivated, to sell less of what they're selling.
I think that was one of the problems that they were discussing or alluding to, that if the state could come up with, through the Iowa Housing Authority or some other state organization, to run those programs, even if it's only for low-income people, and find a way that they can put it into low-income or even for landlords for low-income housing, in some way that they guarantee they'll stay low income or something for a period of time after they do it, or set up some system that would be better than the utilities running their own program.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it's too, it just doesn't work to have the seller of the product trying to manage an energy efficiency program, even though we know that energy efficiency is the best thing for Iowans. It's just it's the fox guarding the hen house. It's not working. Let's see, we had another comment in there from Mark. Thanks, Mark, for your comment there. He's just saying thank you. And this presentation, Gina and Bob and everybody else that worked on this, is just absolutely fantastic. So thank you very, very much for this. I'm really glad we recorded it. I did have a bunch of questions, but I don't want to dominate here. So does anybody have some questions for these guys? About 12 minutes before we're going to round up.
Yeah, and I know Mark had to leave, but he did have a question earlier about the projected economic loss to the county by not allowing green sources.
Oh, okay.
That is a big question. And I don't think that any of us have numbers to provide on that. I don't know, not to put you on the spot, Don, do you want to take a stab at how to answer that? I don't know if Don is still with us here, Don Hofstrand.
Don, let's see.
Oh
yeah, he's there.
I asked the question, and
Oh, hey, Mark.
yeah, I did a tour of a wind farm in central Illinois about 2 weeks ago, and the amount of tax revenue the counties are generating from those wind farms is just putting the counties over the top. So we need to gather that information together.
Yeah, Mark, I love that. And Don, feel free to jump in here, but I will say that Lynn County, and I sent this out last week, but they kind of put a playbook together on how to get past these moratoriums that are put on, and to sort of bring the stakeholders together and to really get the facts laid out there, and to really make collaboratively make some decisions that will, there are legitimate concerns to these large solar farms that especially adjacent landowners might have, and just misconceptions that people live far away. What's going to happen to property value that's maybe 2 properties away from these big, large solar farms? And also they don't know about the economics of it. And so I think Lynn County, like I said, they're going to share in one of these sessions in the next month or so, and we can maybe ask those questions directly. But I know that Dubuque County is going through this moratorium right now. I know Clayton County a few years ago has put their actual solar ordinance in place. And so if there's not, and I know Tama's really kind of gearing up there for some confrontation. What I would recommend, if you live in a county and you have some, read the playbook, look at some of these resources, and you think that it might be a situation that you can actually harden the process and get some solar ordinance, large utility scale solar ordinance in place before the fight begins, it might be smart to do that. But the economics are, yes, for everyone, for ratepayers, for just, yeah, again, the tax base, which is basically everybody, the tax base and the ratepayers, it's a huge win.
Oh, Don, if you could unmute Don, I think maybe you have a response.
We're not hearing you, Don.
I think why Gene is calling on Don, he's been doing a lot of looking into this and doing some research and trying to find out cost on that. And one of the things that we did come across is that the solar is taxed at a different way than the wind towers. And Don can definitely come on and correct me on this, because I'm just trying to paraphrase what I think he sent us. But that the property tax for solar installations goes to the state and then it's distributed to all the counties. So it doesn't just benefit the home county, which really makes not a whole lot of sense. At least a bit lion's share should stay locally, if not the whole amount. But they're saying, well, you know, if Polk County can't afford to put in any solar here, we should take what Cerro Gordo and Clinton and other counties have and share it equally with all our people, because it's all in the state. So that's sort of my interpretation of what the state is trying to do on solar. They didn't get in quick enough on wind, because that's goes to local property tax. Does that sound reasonable? What we think Don said, Gina?
Yes.
Wow. That's not
need
something
to
I was aware of.
Yeah, we need to look into that more, and we're
Yeah.
trying to get more information on it. That's a paper that Don had found from some organization that kind of analyzed what's going on. And people working, we had a person who worked in the solar industry visit with us, and he talked about the same thing. Here, there's Don. Can you speak to Don? I'll quit trying to quote you.
For some reason, there's something on. Yeah,
Yeah, Don,
we're just not hearing you. Somehow your mic's not coming through, Don. Well, thanks on that. And you know, as far as Don, that's a great topic. That's not something that I've been aware of that tax revenue from large utility scale solar installations is getting kicked back to the state, but it is something, again, that I do think our Lynn County Energy District folks could probably share on. And I also think that is certainly something that CEDI could, you know, do research for the group as well and share out. So
Yep, and I will part of what Don might have wanted to share too, or I will share, is that we had reached out to Andy Johnson and also Amy Buska. And she sent us a nice document about the complexity and how to maybe get our heads around how to calculate that tax, the taxes for large scale solar and projects. So I think that to summarize, it's complex. So that's why it's not an easy answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Gina. Yeah, that sounds good. And Amy would be a great resource on that too. Okay. I kind of had does anybody else have some questions for Gina and for?
I saw that Paul maybe raised his hand. Was there a raised hand?
Paul. Really
Yeah, I was just going to comment. The conversation's moved past that pretty much, but I was just going to say too, in regards to like wind and solar, our county engineer did a nice job. He submitted an article in our local paper here last year talking about the benefits, because in Howard County we have a lot of wind turbines, And basically, in the article, he pointed out how the revenue from the wind turbines for the county paid for 2 new bridges on secondary roads. And, you know, that's something people want and can see. You know, farmers, they need to get their product to the, you know, market and everything. So it's created a lot of support. You know, I think we're kind of oddballs here in Howard County in that we have little to no resistance with wind. And I really don't see much for solar either, to be honest. I know My Energy put up a large solar field actually just across the county line in Winneshiek County, but there wasn't any resistance to that either.
Yeah, you know, and Lynn County, where the huge solar array that they have there, there's 2. One in Coggin and the other one's at Palo. And Palo is where the nuclear plant was retired. And so there was a huge node there to dump. You know, they didn't want to pass up the opportunity to generate some kind of power and get it onto the grid there in at Palo. And so, I mean, it was a 3-year process to get people to come to the table and basically discuss these issues of, you know, what about my backyard? What does that mean to me? What am I going to have to look at all the time? What about me that was renting this farm ground that now is going to be taken up for solar? What about, can it still be used in production? And so they did, this group, they took their solar or their zoning board and county employees and all kinds of folks on tours all over the place. One of them's down in Wapello County, also over across the river near Dodgeville, Wisconsin, and then another one up in Minnesota. And they just really, they ended up writing a playbook for counties where this conflict occurs. There's a lot of, like I said, local landowner concerns. There's larger general population concerns. And like I said, like there could be counties like you just said, Paul, where up in Howard County and Winneshiek County, you know, it's just not going to meet opposition. And in that case, it's a good idea to get some of this ordinance in place to protect those who want to develop their land the way they want to develop their land. You know, there's a lot of Farm Bureau pushback in Dubuque County right now that, and in Lynn County, the Farm Bureau did not push back. So there's in Farm Bureau, they're very, in Dubuque County, they're concerned about view shed. We have really great Mississippi, Great River Road views, and do we want to be looking out at these huge, large solar fields in what has been really a signature part of our county here in Northeast Iowa. So but what I love about what Lynn County did is they kind of pulled all that together and just kept trying to make some concessions, making sure people were compensated for what they viewed as a potential loss, and help people who wanted to, because those are the people that really win. If they've got a solar developer that wants to use their land to put their solar panels on, that's really nice income. And some of them want to do it because it's just like the right thing to do. It's a good use of land in their minds. It's gonna, you know, reduce carbon emissions. So yeah, a lot. There's just so many aspects to it. And I think John Zakrasek talks an awful lot about bringing everybody to the table and facilitating those conversations.
Yes, and we had a call with him at one of our board meetings to talk about kind of that bringing both sides together. So in preparation for attending these public input meetings, the 5 meetings on the moratorium for solar and wind. So that was good advice, and we really appreciated his insight and support.
Gina, what I wanted to ask about that, because I love that you guys went and were present to all those meetings, and you know, and that's really maybe back to the point of you guys sharing your story today. When you know, you're basically trying to you know, develop street credentials, right? Some credibility. And do you feel like now 2 years later, there was nothing in the form of a clean energy district. And now, where do you think it is? Like, do you think folks are kind of like, oh yeah, the energy district has some really like, officialness to them, and we can rely on them for some facts?
Well, we have had some inquiries. Sure. We've had some people contact us for a little bit of guidance and help, saying, hey, a solar company approached us. Kind of how do we go about this? But I would say we're still pretty new. I mean, it was just February of last year that we incorporated, and we're pretty small. So we're still working to get our message out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was just gonna say, my experience when I am talking to people, I say, oh, by the way, I'm part of the Cerro Gordo Clean Energy District, then they're interested and they want to know what we're doing. And it's a positive response that I'm getting with people whenever I talk with them. And we did have, when we were running our nonprofit tour, I had some business owners come and talk to me about what can we do for businesses, not nonprofit, but for the businesses for solar. So I saw a question, are we going to have tours on business? Yes, we are, probably for homeowners and maybe eventually for farmers. So we're planning to do more of these tours. They're very successful, very visible. We just need to let the media know when we're doing them.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of, you can do a bunch of stuff, but if you don't tell anybody about it, it just stays under the bushel basket. So yeah. Oh gosh, you guys really, what a strong effort. And it's just like, like we talk about, here we are at the beginning of baseball season again, but it's that hitting those singles, doing a couple of things, and then just, keep doing it. And that tour, those pictures, the different sites that you hit. I mean, I just can't say enough to the efforts that you put out there. I mean, really, really nice just to do something and to tell a few people about it. And like you said, then celebrate it on your website, which is another product of your work so far, is your website is up and running and sort of showcases what has happened. Wow, I just bravo for everything that you've done there. Just to dig in and to stick together. And you said you have kind of a small group of just 8 board members. I'm like, wow, I think a lot of us energy district folks would be, that's like the gold rush to us, to have that many people that are willing to get together. And how often you meet? Pretty often, don't you? Pretty regularly?
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah.
Plus committee meetings in between.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Wow. What a dedication. I mean, just thank you so much for this, for what you're doing there in a very that's a very populated area of the state. So thank you very much.
Just going back to your singles instead of home runs, my background is in community and economic development, and I always talked in terms of 100, or not 100% solution, but 101% solutions, or a fraction thereof. And that's what we're trying to do, is get 101% solutions, because they're much easier to work on.
Yeah, right? Oh, thank you. Yeah, good. I like that. I did have one quick question about the Good Neighbor geothermal system. Is that a shared loop field there? Do they have, like, are they feeding a bunch of buildings with just a couple of wells? Is that how that works? Do you remember?
It's at a Good Shepherd. It's at a assisted living unit. And so they're providing those 2 things and the solar, all for their assisted living units.
Okay, so multiple units. Oh, one big building.
One big building.
Not a couple of buildings being served by one shared loop. Okay.
So two loops serving one building along with the solar, and yes.
Gotcha. Okay. And those savings, or the hub, I just want to just say a couple things, like using HubSpot for your organizing your kind of your CRM thing. That's smart. Maybe that would be something like, if you could do a little like how to on that. I think other energy districts would be interested in that. just how
Yep.
that benefited you, just on just a short one, maybe I think if you guys did a lunch and learn, just an intro lunch and learn for the energy district folks, that might be kind of a good idea. Oh, how long did that tour last, Gina, by the way, that with
Oh,
the three
sure.
steps?
Yep, it was about 3 hours. And so we started at 9 a.m. at the first site, 10 o'clock at the second site, and 11 o'clock at the third site.
Good for you.
And we wrapped up before noon. We really wanted
Wow.
to stay on track and respect people's time. So, but that left plenty of time for questions and, some synergies even. There were some really great conversations that followed. So
Mhm.
It was basically a 45-minute presentation, well, a half-hour presentation, 15 minutes of questions, and 15 minutes to get to the next site.
Wow,
Yep.
yeah, you guys moved it along, and I mean, it just looked like it was very encompassing, so I appreciate that. Really, really good. Well, we're a little past our time of 7 o'clock. I just want to thank you again for taking the time to put this all together. And I do have it recorded, and I'll share it out with all of our CEDI network tomorrow, or the day after. And geez, thank you again, everybody. Anything else before we go to the order?
well, I just can't stress enough how helpful it's been to, our success is really after the success of the original Winneshiek Energy District and all of the efforts put out there by the other energy districts. I mean, I looked at lists and templates and, it's really, we wouldn't have done this without the models of things that have happened in the past.
Right.
So
yeah.
and
Well,
Jillian, your encouragement too. So we really,
yeah.
it's a team effort. So
It is, but you guys really, you just took it and I mean, the uptake there and this will work for us in a large community. It's a great example. So thank you
Yeah.
again. All right.
Glad to share.
Well,
Thank you.
I got to go check on my Cubs. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.